Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham. I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham. I'm the therapist.
So today we are talking about the Netflix documentary Pamela, A Love Story.
Yes.
About Pamela Anderson Lee, now Pamela Anderson, formerly married to...
A lot of people, but most famously, Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee. Have to say, Motley Crue, probably one of my favorite bands ever. I've seen them in concert 5 times. Oh my, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know it was that many.
Yeah, love them. But anyway, so this is a documentary that was, she had. She has a huge hand in it. Mm-hmm. I mean,
because her son produced it.
Her son Brandon produced it, and she's the narrator of the story, and so it's very, very personal and authentic, and you're hearing it straight from her, and it's very sincere. And we were just talking about how the through line that she uses throughout this documentary is that. Tommy Lee was the love of her life. Mm-hmm. It was such a wonderful love story. And after they broke up, she just never loved anybody like that again, was always searching for that kind of love. And it's kind of come to the conclusion that she'll never find that love again. And that if she can't be with him, the father of her children, because her children are very central to this. She feels this great deal of
and I'm sorry, but she ended her relationship with Tommy because of the children,
right, to protect
the children. So I think that she has been, obviously she and her children have a wonderful relationship. They obviously love and care about her.
Yeah.
So
but, I was just saying, I'm not really sure if I would call this a love story. Mm-hmm. I think I would call it more of a infatuation. And, this goes back to her. So her parents, who got married very young, her father was an alcoholic. She had a very chaotic upbringing. Her parents fought all the time, but then they would fight hard, but then they'd get back together, and then they'd just be having sex all over the house. It was so intense, back and forth and off and on. And her parents are still together to this day, and she romanticizes that.
Yeah, she does.
And she very much equates love as being this crazy experience, these high highs, even though, there's these low lows. She really fixates and focuses on that high when they were in love, and when things were good, they were so good. But when things were bad with her and Tommy, they were really bad.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And Tommy was an alcoholic. I think he's been sober a couple of years.
Yes.
But he was an alcoholic throughout their entire relationship and during their kids' lives growing up. And so it's kind of hard for me to be like, this, unrequited love story. It just doesn't feel that way to me. What do you think?
No, I agree. I've been married almost 20 years, and I can tell you that passion and craziness and all of that is great. But if I think that Pam wants, we're so close, Pam. Pamela wants that crazy love, and she wants it all the time. So she keeps marrying people thinking like, this is crazy, this is amazing, this is wonderful. And then inevitably that will die out with just anything. It will just die out, period. And you have to then decide, am I committed to this person? I'm going to build a life with this person. And you have to recognize that those grand, amazing, passionate moments aren't going to feel the same way. And they've done studies on this. There's a whole book called Love where they talk about this. Like after the initial first 2 years, like there's this drop for people where even if you were ripping each other's clothes off in the first, couple months of being together, when you get to 2 years, you're going to get bored. I mean, look at Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt got tired of fucking each other. I'm sorry. Like those two beautiful, beautiful people got to the point where they're like, I cannot stand you. I don't want to look at you anymore. So what she's been searching for doesn't exist. Right. Because she wants something that is
always going to be high, crazy high.
She loves the crazy highs, and she keeps seeking them and searching for them. And what's really interesting is she's now here in her 50s, and she kind of laughs about how like she's 50s, no one wants to see my body anymore. I'm an old lady, but she's still looking for this. She's still searching for these highs or something, But
anyway. Well, so that's sort of our analysis. In a nutshell, our analysis. But we are going to go through. It's a lot of facts. It's a lot. It was a fairly long.
It's a full solid 2-hour documentary. Well, and the other thing too is, which I always think is really interesting, is that she has been. It opens up with her like pulling out these videotapes, and obviously videotape is something that's a through line in her story and Tommy Lee's story and what happened to her. But the other part of it is, I think it's so interesting when you trip upon these documentaries about someone where they film themselves all the time. Yeah. Like I can't, it wasn't coming to me when I was watching it, but I feel like I've seen a lot of documentaries like this where they have all of this material, this footage, because they were constantly videotaping everything all the time.
Oh yeah.
And there's something about that that's real, like, why? And she said, she said, yeah, you would open up a tape, put it in the thing, film everything, and then, label it, put it back in, and then you put another one in, and it's on and on and on and on, which I think is very odd. Why do you need to videotape every single moment of your life?
I don't know, because I under record everything. Yes. I mean, even now with the ease of iPhone, I never record stuff. I don't know. It's just not I didn't grow up like in this, digital age. And even when we had the VHS cameras and the tapes, I didn't do it then either. I don't know, but some people are really into it. But it was interesting, because it opens up with her like going through these boxes and boxes and boxes of VHS tapes, and she's playing some of them. And, it's like, there's a video of her and Tommy in Venice, and
there's like flashes of her life.
Yeah, like he's riding up on a horse dressed as a knight and proposing to her again. And she makes a comment and she says, "That was it. That was my time to be in love." As if she had one chance. Yes. And it didn't work. And so she's never going to be in love. I thought that was interesting. But anyway, so,
so we go back to her modern day. She's in this mower, and she lives. So she's back in the town where she grew up in, which is Ladysmith, British Columbia in Canada.
On Vancouver Island.
And on Vancouver Island.
Well, yeah. And this is the house she grew up in. And she
said they grew up in a shack. So I think that
I think she built a house, or they rebuilt it.
Yeah. With her money.
It's now much bigger, but she's living there with her mom. And I guess her dad.
Yeah, we don't see him there.
We don't really see him much, but
yeah, we learn about, and she has a younger brother. But we learn about exactly what you said earlier about their parents. The parents married young. Dad was an alcoholic. She said he was a con man poker player.
Yeah.
That
sounds, she liked the bad boys.
Yeah. And she had, there was a lot of physical abuse between her parents when she was young.
Well, her mom was, they married when her mom was 17. Her dad was 19. Her mom was pregnant when they got married. Yeah. Drinking, violence. The mom left the dad a few times. They had to go on welfare.
And then I think what would happen is dad would roll back in and then the cycle would keep going.
Yeah. And she had some really dramatic stuff.
Yes.
She had a babysitter who molested her.
A female babysitter.
Female babysitter who molested her for 3 or 4 years. And Pam said one day she tried to stab this woman in the heart with a candy cane pen. And she said she wished she was dead. And the next day, the woman died in a car accident.
Yeah. And she thought she caused it.
She thought she caused it. She blamed herself. And then she was raped when she was 12 by a 25-year-old. But yeah, her whole life, she... even before the VHS era, she recorded everything. She had these boxes and boxes of diaries.
Like everything that happened to her.
Everything that happened to her every day of her life written on legal pads and the tapes. And so, yeah, so she's been recording her entire life in some way. And, yeah, she said she was always attracted to bad guys. And when she left the island... It was like she was doing this really kind of crazy thing because she said when you grow up on an island, the mainland is a scary place.
Yeah.
Even though it's just Vancouver Island.
And this is what I think is so interesting about her is she really just kind of, it's interesting. And she admits this many times where it's like, there's no plan. Like, it sounds like she never has plans. And so she just kind of floats through life. And she always has all these boyfriends. And she's talking about how, right, in high school, her first boyfriend they would get into physical fights, you know, and he tried to
her out of a car.
Yeah. And he tried to run her over. And then after she graduated, she went to Vancouver and then she kind of like moved in with someone. And then he thought she was, you know, she thought he was cheating on her. And it's just sort of like one bad relationship. And then she famously, this is how she's discovered. In 1989, she went to this BC Lions football game in Canada and she was on the jumbotron. She was wearing a Labatt's tee and her friend worked at Labatt's. And the friend was like, stand up, show the Labatt shirt. And then they invited her on the football field. And then she came back up and Labatt's found her and wanted her to star into commercials. And that really was, I mean, I will say the one thing with her was she really didn't have this long period of struggling. Like she really was discovered. I mean, she has like that classic sort of story, that Hollywood story of randomly went to something, had no plans, jumbotron, then this person sees them.
And then what happened was Playboy contacted her, which again, this really, you know, we also had a past episode about the secrets of Playboy. And one of the things we talked about was that the Playboy brand is, it's not enough to just be this beautiful woman with a certain kind of body. You have to be the girl next door. And that's what she is. Yeah. And they saw that. And they said, get her to Hollywood. Yeah. And she was so naive that she didn't realize that she had to have a passport to go from Canada to the US. So she goes to the airport and they're like, because, you know, Playboy is flying her into LA. So they deny her to get on a plane. She had to go on a Greyhound bus and hope that they didn't ask for her passport, and they didn't. So then she got to Seattle, got on an airplane, and just showed up at the Playboy Mansion. I mean, you're talking about being plucked out of nowhere because you're this beautiful girl next door. Yeah.
So this is when she, you know, they got her, they dyed her hair blonde. She talked about being painfully shy and really unsure about her body. She developed late.
When she had all the shame about her body because of the sexual abuse.
Yeah. And then that's when she talks about the rape and what happened, and she didn't tell anyone. And she says that posing nude made her feel like, you know, something changed inside of her. You know, like she felt empowered for the first time in her life. And it was like, oh, this is easy. You know, this is fun. This is me. And then...
So this is she was Miss February 1990.
Oh, she was? I thought this was 89. Well, 89 was Lola Bat's thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's when her issue came out.
So they told her to stay in LA and they wanted to make her a playmate. And then is this when she got the boob job? This was very confusing to me because I always thought that she had those boobs before. Like, I wonder, she obviously is very honest about the fact that she had a boob job, right? But was it done in Vancouver?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think it was Playboy who paid for it? Because she didn't have any money.
I don't know, but her boobs looked great in that Playboy. She did not need a boob job.
If those were her natural breasts in that original thing, no. Why did she? They were big. They were perfect.
I don't know, but no, I'm sure she did. She never talked about the timing of that. But I think it was after. I think it was maybe like, around the time when even Baywatch, I don't think they were that big. I'm trying to think, because she's in her bathing suit. They're not like spilling out. I don't know when she did it, honestly.
I don't know. But it's something that people asked her constantly. And that, again, is a through line in the show where they talk about, it's just, she always has to act, all of these interviews ask her questions about her boobs, her sex life, this and that. Like,
that's all they wanted to talk about.
That's all they wanted to talk about.
And this gross Matt Lauer, who we now know is
a pig,
actually committing sexual, premeditated sexual assault, said to her, "Can we talk about your breasts?" And he just kept asking her more and more questions. And throughout all these Larry King and Jay Leno and David Letterman, all these, the first thing they ask, they want to talk about her boobs. It's so gross. When I look back on that stuff, I'm just like, God, thank God all those people are just gone.
Yeah. No, that's awful.
It's hideous.
Well, and so she said at the time, Playboy was like her agent. And I have to say, this is the other thing is, as all of these stories are coming out about Playboy and all of the Playboy scandals and everything that's happened, she's very lucky, right? Because she was so naive and so like, she had this apartment, there was no furniture. She was like just from Canada, right? That nothing happened to her there.
Well, you know why? Because when she was a Playmate, that was the time when Hef was married to Kimberly. So everything was that whole period, and I think Holly Madison, other people have talked about this.
Oh, they have, where things were shut down. Yeah, like Kimberly did not allow, they still had the pool parties and whatever, but it was a totally different scene. Yeah.
It was not like it was.
Oh, earlier, because it was just, Holly Madison was on this other show I watched, this true crime show called The First Degree. And she was on there talking about this particular story. And again, it was just another story of Playboy ruining a woman's life.
Oh, great.
I mean, and I was just, so that's why I thought it was like, why didn't anything happen to her? But you're right. I guess that was what was going on. So Playboy was acting as her agent, and they kept people wanted to hire her for this show called Baywatch that was very popular. That it was like, Baywatch was a weird show because it wasn't on ABC. It was on syndication. Like it was almost like this early syndicated show because it wasn't on one of the big networks. It wasn't. It was on at different times. It was very strange, but the show was very, very popular, but she kept not going to the auditions.
Well, she
didn't want to do it.
She canceled on them 11 times because they wanted her to go to Marina Del Rey, and that seemed very far. It seemed like a long drive to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize she said it was the most popular show in the world. It was like the #1 show in China. See, I mean, I honestly, I don't think, I've never seen an episode of Baywatch.
It's pretty bad. I think I've seen scenes here and there. And I mean, they obviously hire people for their looks, not their acting talent. And right, I mean.
Oh, David Hasselhoff.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, David Hasselhoff. And then we flash back. We're talking about that. She's talking about the slow motion running, and the casting directors were talking about how magnetic she was, and they went to Europe to promote Baywatch, and it was crazy. And then we flash to present day, and she starts telling us about how she got married recently.
Yeah, she married a contractor,
and she's like, "Yeah, he's a very normal guy. I thought I would try it." Met him in Canada.
They've since that
divorced.
filming, they've since divorced.
But it was just a little like, okay. So
she dated a lot of
guys,
people who I didn't realize, like Mario Van Peebles, Scott Baio,
Dean Cain, Eric Nies from that show I never watched, The Real World, David Charvet, who was her co-star, and then she met Kelly Slater, who was on Baywatch, but he was like this real heartbreaker type, like you couldn't hold him down. So in Los Angeles, 1994, so she's dating all these guys, living her life. on Baywatch, she's a part owner of this club called Sanctuary, and Tommy Lee was there, and he was known as the Motley Crue bad boy.
Yeah.
But he was very, very aggressive with her. He really liked her.
He followed her to Cancun.
Yes, essentially.
He kept calling her every day, and she just wouldn't answer the phone. She finally answered the phone because she thought it might be her agent or someone. And he is asking her to go out. And she's like, well, no, I'm leaving for Cancun tomorrow. And he literally just flew down there.
Yeah, with his friends.
And found her.
Yeah.
And then this, I thought, was pretty disgusting. Like, okay, so he finds her in Cancun, and they're partying that night, and he put ecstasy in her champagne.
Well, I got the feeling that she knew that
Beforehand?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she didn't find out till
I thought
after.
she knew. I thought she agreed to it. Because, I mean, I think, just Pamela's never admitted to any of these things, but I always got the sense that she probably partied a lot. And I always got the sense that I don't think that she didn't party to the extent of the way Tommy Lee did.
Well, I don't think she was a big drinker. I don't know. I don't think she knew about it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not positive, but the way she said it made me think.
Well, if he did slip it in her, then that is gross.
Well,
and not
yeah,
tell her.
because
I got the sense that she knew.
Because he asked her to marry him like the next day, or no, that night.
Yeah.
So of course she's going to say yes. He put she's on ecstasy. Of course she's thinking.
But she went through with it, right? Because they're in Cancun, and after a few days, like 4 days later, they get married. She's in this white bikini, and they marry on the beach.
I know, but she uses these phrases when she's talking about this. These 4 days together before they got married. She's talking about how. She thought it would be a clean slate. It was an adventure. It was a fantasy. There were no secrets. It was raw love. I mean, she's just from the very beginning kind of not in her right mind about this relationship and what it really is.
Well, and also she was sort of dating Kelly Slater at the time. So she had to go back and say, tell Kelly Slater, I got married.
I'm sure he heard about it on the news, like we all did. But one thing I noticed that, they do the tongue thing.
Oh, yes.
The way that Travis and Courtney did.
Yeah, I remember thinking you guys did not originate this.
They did it first.
Yes,
this
they
is
were.
not original. So now we know where that comes from.
Skinny white,
drummer.
Tattooed drummer. Yeah, there you go. But, and then she said, well, by the time they came home, they knew nothing about each other. It was almost like, do you like eggs in the morning? They knew nothing.
I don't even know if she knew his real name.
Yeah.
She's like, so what is our last name?
Yeah.
And he said Lee. And she's like, oh, I just assumed that was a stage name.
Uh-huh. So, and then she gets into that whole thing about they filmed everything back then. And then we see her in May of 1995. She goes to the Cannes Film Festival wearing this. And I remember there are photos of this everywhere. So this is the 90s, and everyone had People magazine and Us magazine, and there were tons of these tabloids and all of that. And so she, I remember her going and wearing that head to toe leather bustier and outfit for this. And basically they hadn't shot the movie yet for Barbed Wire. They hadn't shot the movie. They hadn't done anything. Basically they just gave her this outfit, told her to show up. And there was so much attention because she had also just gotten, she's very famous and she's big on Baywatch. She's all this attention. She just has this whirlwind romance, this marriage. And then she shows up to this. And then all of a sudden she said everything changed. Like they rewrote it. They did that and they made it. I mean, I guess I get the sense that she kind of was hoping I get this opportunity to do a movie. Let me just kind of do this movie and see how it goes. Yeah. As opposed to it instantly became, there's just so much attention on it. So yeah, it didn't do very well because it wasn't good because they, they tried to make so many expectations.
Yeah, into something else. Yeah. And then she, she was talking about how exhausted she was between having to film Baywatch and Barbed Wire, and she was pregnant and she had a miscarriage during that period.
She was working so hard.
And
well, it's also interesting because she said Barbed Wire failed, but she didn't really care because she lost her baby.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I really don't. And that's what I've always kind of thought about her was I always got the sense that she really didn't want to, that she didn't really need to have this big career, that she really, because it was never her intention. Like it literally, she kept
It's not like she grew up thinking, I want to be an actress.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she literally just, oh, Labatt's. Oh, now I'm here. Now Playboy. Now I'm here. I mean, she just kind of got one lucky break after another. And it truly was. And that's why I always got so frustrated when I would see her with all this makeup, because she is such a natural beauty. She really is. And it's like, God, I hated when she would pile on all this makeup and do all this stuff, because she is magnetic. She is beautiful.
Yeah. So then she got pregnant again, and Brandon was born in 1996.
She said this was a really happy time that I think, unfortunately, only lasted a very short time. But I do want to say, so they keep cutting in clips of their lives together, right?
From these VHS tapes.
Did you notice how many times she said to him, "Oh, you're drinking."
Yes, I have a note here.
Dad. Oh, look, you've got a beer.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's so early.
It's so early. Like many times she commented on the drinking.
And she said that he was, I don't know if she said this while she was filming or something. She said that Tommy was a bad drunk.
Yes.
So, yeah, so it was a very short-lived
happy
time. So when Brandon's a baby and they're having some construction done at their house
for months and months,
people going in and out. They showed an aerial view of it. I mean, it was like major construction. There's all these trucks and storage unit type looking things. So anyway, they had out in one of their buildings or garages or something, a gun safe that was like the size of a refrigerator, and it had guns, and it also had all these VHS tapes in it. And one day they noticed that it was missing. And so this is an inside job. Obviously, you can't just walk away with something like this. Extremely, extremely heavy. So they didn't know when it was stolen. They called the police and made a police report. But shortly after that, they got a VHS tape in the mail. And it had like spliced together the sex tape that was made on their honeymoon, or when they were in Cancun getting married, and spliced together some other sex tape material, naked stuff, whatever. And then Bob Guccione, who was the publisher of Penthouse, offered them $5 million for the tape. Now, this is what I didn't understand, because how can they give him the tape? They don't have it anymore. So does that mean he has it?
Yeah, I don't understand. I was going to ask you what the legalese behind all of this was, because it's very strange. I didn't watch the new Hulu show because I didn't
either.
I didn't want to revisit this, but that's what I didn't understand. So that guy stole the tape, he splices it together. He sends it to them as like a warning, or does he go to Bob Guccione and say to him, like, hey, I've got this tape, and Bob Guccione's like, well, let me offer them money. Maybe let me do this on the up and up and get the rights for it.
Yeah, it has to be, because if he's going to pay $5 million, then obviously they're going to sign off any rights to Penthouse. So I think that whoever stole it was working probably with Penthouse. But they said no. And then all of a sudden, the tape was just out there everywhere. I guess this company, IEG,
put it out without their permission.
They were selling it, and you could basically get it anywhere. And this was in the beginning stages of the internet.
Yes, it was August 1996 was when the tape was released. And, this was the time of, it was like dial up. And I mean, I remember where I was working at the time, like, I think one person had the internet, internet capabilities on their computer. I mean, it was really
and to download a video would take like a couple hours for it to fully download, and then you'd try to watch it, and it would, it wouldn't be like streaming. It would stall. So it wasn't really user friendly yet, for porn.
Yeah, but it spread like wildfire because, and they were under a tremendous amount of stress. And so they already had the paparazzi. Again, this was the days where paparazzi would follow you around wherever you went. And they were already this very, very famous couple, famously getting married, famously just had a child. And then all of a sudden this happens and the paparazzi is everywhere.
Yeah. So one night they go out on a date night. Yes. Their first night out since Brandon's been born.
To the Viper Room. You and I have been to the Viper Room.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
We saw John Taylor of
Duran Duran. Yeah. Do you remember his famous song?
I don't.
Oh.
What was the name of it?
His famous song, it was horrible. It was like, put the ring on her finger and don't look back. I think that was one of the, I don't know if that was the name of the song or not, but I got the sense that he was being pressured to marry someone at the time.
Oh.
Yeah. All of his songs were about just getting married and, his life being over. I don't know.
That was his short-lived solo career.
It was.
I hope those tickets were free.
They were, of course. There were no tickets. They just put me on a VIP list because, at the time, I think that he was looking for management. And so Joni was like, you go. I'm not going to go to the Viper Room at like 10 o'clock on a Thursday. And you were in town. So I was like, okay, well, let's go.
Wow.
Anywho,
that's a throwback.
We are very cool people too. Okay.
So they're coming out of the Viper Room. There's all this paparazzi and Tommy punches a pap and, Pam gets pepper sprayed and it's just it's a horrible scene. And so, so then,
hold on. But do you know that what someone yelled at her? They yelled, Pam, where's your child?
Oh, yeah.
And she just turned and was pissed.
Yeah.
And you hear her saying like, God, I don't get to go out.
Right.
I don't
one
get
time in the last 2 years or
But
something.
I feel like that was the beginning of this. We'll get more into it. This narrative of Pam's a whore.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So then this guy, Ed Masry, who I believe that's the same lawyer, the Aaron Brockovich lawyer. He agrees to take their case, against these people who are distributing the video, saying, this is an invasion of privacy. And she said that the experience of going through, and I think at this point she's pregnant again.
Okay. That when she's doing the deposition.
So they do these horrible things. Like they take her deposition, they ask about her sex life. She said that they had nude pictures of her up during the deposition and they're asking her about them. And so she said she was scared she was going to have another miscarriage and she decided she would rather drop the case.
Well, yeah, here's my question. So she said that the argument that the other side's lawyers were saying was because she was naked in Playboy, she had no right to privacy. Yeah. And I wrote, is that a legit legal argument? Is that?
No.
Okay.
No. But I mean, they were pressuring her to drop the case. They were making it so unbearable to her, to put it. Yeah. I mean, I think that was their tactic. I mean, of course not. Nobody loses their right to privacy because they do anything. But I mean, we're talking about an antiquated time, even though it's just the 90s, doesn't seem like that long ago, but that was the attitude and that's how they treated her, like you said, throughout this entire experience, that you basically forfeit. If you do stuff like this, you're a slut and you don't deserve any respect. You don't deserve any privacy. What are you complaining about? You chose to record yourself and you chose to do this and that. And it's like, well, so do millions of other people. Yeah. They just nobody cares about their video.
Well, she did say at one point, she said like they were asking her all these questions about her sexuality, right? And she said she said the feeling was that this should mean nothing to you, because she's such a whore. And these were Pamela's words that she was. And she said that Playboy was empowering to her, but the tape felt like another rape. She felt like she was raped again.
Absolutely. And then she also talked about how it was different for her versus Tommy, because Tommy's a rock star. This actually makes his street cred better. Yes. It helped his career. Yeah. And it destroyed her career. So anyway, she signed
the papers.
She signed the papers. She said, just get this. I just want this over with. They never made a dime. The tape just did what it was going to do on the internet.
She was the punchline of a lot of jokes.
Yeah. And in fact, there was one scene where she kind of confronted Jay Leno and said, I'm the punchline. And they showed, clip after clip after clip of her talking about her. And she's like, that really hurts my feelings or something. And he's like, first he's like, I didn't do that. And she's like, yeah, you did. And then he sort of was like, oh, well, I'm sorry. But she did confront him.
Yeah. She said that wasn't good. And he's like, oh, I didn't, I think he said something to the effect of, I didn't know it bothered you or something like that. It's like, oh, really?
God, seriously?
But this really she felt like whatever career she had was over, you know, because, you know, but then we get into Tommy, and Tommy was very romantic, but he was also very, very jealous.
Very jealous.
Very jealous.
She said at first she thought it was cute.
Yes.
But not so much.
And then we start learning about the behind the scenes. And I think this is one of the things that we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, which is that, you know, at the time he was jealous, and she was dealing with him and his jealousy and his alcoholism and all of that. And I think at the time she probably, you know, that's just from everything that she went through with her parents, she just must have just made excuses for him, because this is also this time, you know, this is before they had the kids. This is also this really romantic time of her life, right? She talks about this time with Tommy to be so amazing and wonderful and romantic, but it's like, well, really, what was happening is you were going on the set every day, and he was jealous, and you would get in trouble if you didn't tell him that you had to kiss someone. You know, it's like,
he trashed her trailer because she had a kissing scene.
Yeah, and apparently, like, the crew, everybody was like, "Oh crap, Tommy's here," and they'd start to change everything. And I'm like, so this is this romantic time that you're in, where you have this partner who doesn't trust you, and you know. But she then. They would have to change scenes and dialogues and all of that. And then she says, I think Tommy had some postpartum because they had two children. She had those kids back to back.
Tommy had postpartum?
Yes. She said Tommy had postpartum because they had the two kids back to back. She was working all the time, and suddenly she didn't have time for Tommy. And he said that. He admits that in court. He talks about what happened in an interview or something.
Yeah, he said he wanted his wife
attention.
back.
He wanted the attention.
Yeah, so this culminated in, you know...
February of 1998.
Yeah, one night they're at home, and so Dylan has been born. He's just a baby. And, you know, this is on the heels of all the sex tape stuff. And, you know, Brandon is crawling around on the floor. She's holding Dylan, and he's saying, I want my wife back. And she basically says, you need to grow up, and I need some help here. And she said she'd never really spoken to him like that before. And he just flipped out. And she called 911, and she said that he kicked her while she was holding Dylan. And, he had some other story, but anyway, it doesn't really even matter.
Well, no, I think his excuse, because he goes on some news program and he says, well, I didn't really hit her. Was it wrong of me to grab her and shake her?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, especially with your kid right there. Yeah. But again, what I think is so classic about all of this is Tommy Lee is like a statesman. You know what I mean? Like he's an old rocker. He's cleaned up his act. He's done this and that. It's like, no, he's abusive. He's an abusive alcoholic.
Abusive alcoholic.
And we all just sort of like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And he told that in that interview, his mea culpa, where he said that he now he's number 3. He was used to being number 1. Now he's number 3, and he just wanted love.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That didn't garner any sympathy in me. And he got 6 months in jail.
Yeah. Which is a bit of time.
Which is a lot for a celebrity.
I'm surprised. I wonder if he did all 6 months.
Well, it was county jail, because if it's under a year, it's just county jail, and you get credit for, good time. So he probably only did like 2/3 of it or something.
Yeah, he must have had some priors or something. I mean, that I was really surprised.
I don't think so. I remember at the time thinking, wow, because I used to be a criminal defense attorney, and, your first offense, you kick. I'm not saying that it's okay to touch anybody, but, he kicked her, which on the scale of things in the criminal defense world is not great. And he got 6 months. That was a lot.
Yeah.
So,
but she was done.
She was done.
Absolutely done with
And
him.
she still had all of the letters that he'd sent her from jail, because she keeps everything.
Yeah.
This woman is just a pack rat. And it is really odd too, because this line in the sand that she drew, which is contrary to, her parents' relationship, but yet she seems to kind of idolize her. I don't know if that's the right word. She seems to think her parents' relationship is sort of like symbolic of true love. And Tommy's like her true love. So, I mean, good for her. You know, but it kind of surprised me that she didn't.
Well, I think that they had this true love. And I think for her in that moment in time, it was like, I didn't have a great childhood because my parents were like this. Right. I have these 2 boys now and I'm going to protect them and care for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, she said there was no gray area and she loved him. She loved his soul, but she wasn't going to go forward.
And then apparently those early years, I think Tommy was still very much in his addiction. So the kids didn't see Tommy that much.
Yeah. And in fact, she left LA. And it was weird because she was with Brandon and Dylan. They were looking at some videos and she's like, oh, because they don't have any memory of this. And they're like in a swimming pool and they're like, well, where is that? And she's like, oh, that's when we were living at Wayne Gretzky's house.
Yeah, I know.
Was she dating him? I don't
know. No, because he's been married for years.
Okay.
I think that she's there.
Well, he's Canadian.
It's a Canadian thing.
And then they're on Bob Seger's private jet.
Yeah.
And so she kind of bounced around and then she married Kid Rock and they moved to Detroit for a while.
Yeah. Well, she then says like after the tape was stolen, she questioned everything. And she just got to this point where she thought, well, if everyone's going to think I'm a whore, if everyone's going to hate me, then, or think that I'm trash, then I'm just going to do good with it. And she loves animals. So she's like, I'll be part of PETA, and then she's like, if I'm going to be teased and made fun of, well, at least it'll benefit PETA along the way. But she did also then say that she never really thought about how all of this would affect her kids. And then we get this interview with Brandon, and Brandon says something which I can't imagine for him and his brother, where he felt like his entire life, it was like this dirty little secret. These boys, right? If you really take a step back, like everybody knows.
Yeah, your mom has a sex tape. Your mom and dad have a sex tape.
Everyone's seen your mom naked, that she's seen as this, your dad's seen as that. And he just said he walked around feeling like everyone had this dirty little secret about his family. And it does affect you. It affects how you see things.
Yeah. And he got into fights a lot. Like if kids would say anything about his mom, he'd have to fight them. And she said that the kids always found everything out before she could even tell them, because she didn't want to tell them these inappropriate things.
But they'd
find out anyway.
Yeah. Then we get into the money stuff. She never made... So Pamela was not great with money. Not so much that... I think she just never got into, like, how do I monetize this? Like, let me do a bunch of posters. Let me do this. Let me do that. Like, she didn't... Because, I mean, again, this comes back to... Because she didn't have this idea of, I'm going to... I'm going to become an actress, or I'm going to become this cultural sex symbol icon. She never thought about how to do the business. And because she never got money from the sex tape, that she had to take a lot of jobs she didn't want to take where she was objectified. But also she always really struggled with money, didn't have a lot.
Yeah. Brandon said that she was in debt most of her life, not good with money.
But yet it seemed like she always, I mean, even though she didn't have a lot of money, but she was always living in nice places and doing things. So I don't think it was that bad. It was just more, I think it was more of like, maybe she'd do a job or do a thing and get a couple $100,000, and then, then that would be out. And then she'd get another job. And I think that she had, she obviously has lived in Malibu forever. We saw, this home in Canada, the home, where she was staying in New York. I mean, these were all nice places she was in. So I don't think it was that bad. But
yeah, no, she's not down on her luck or anything. But I think what he was saying,
nowhere near.
Well, and one of the things, this wasn't really addressed in the documentary, but in the interviews that Brandon and Pam have been doing, he talks about how he felt like that it was so unfair that Baywatch, the number one show in the world, he said she makes like about $4,000 a year in residuals. Like she didn't have these good contracts. Yeah.
That's why I'm saying it wasn't a network show. Hand to God. I think it was a syndicated show. So they can really take advantage of people, and they do.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and that's the thing. She's one of the most famous women in the country, in the world, and everyone knows her. You look at everyone can identify her.
Yeah.
Yet, yeah, she was never able to monetize that.
Yeah. So then we get into her marriage to Kid Rock. I was hoping they'd talk a little bit more about this, but I guess July of 2006, you know, she said they were having fun. He was good to the boys, but it didn't really feel like love. It didn't have that same passion. Mm-hmm. And again, up until that point when they got married, they had been together, broken up, back and forth. And then they finally get married. And then they have like 3 different marriage ceremonies. And then they break up like 6 months later. It was crazy. It was just nutty. I remember all that at the time. So then she thought, well, I should be married to a friend. So Rick Solomon, who also is very famous for being in the Paris Hilton sex tape, because this was the partner. And he's a professional poker player.
But he was on drugs.
Yes. So they get married, I guess, in October of 2007. And then she didn't realize that he was a big drug addict. And they ended up finding a crack pipe in the Christmas tree. So again, but this is the other part of it too, is that, again, I mean, I understand where she's saying with the plans, and obviously she's very, very close to her boys, but I do wonder, and then both the boys talk about this, like these marriages, you know, even though she left the abusive father, there was a little bit of like, but you kind of keep moving these kids around from man
having
to
all
man
this
to
activity.
man to man. And then with Rick Solomon, he gets sober, and she's like, and he'd been sober for years. And so in January 2014, she's like, okay, I married him again. And then that didn't last long.
Yeah.
It was just a little bit like, why can't you, it's like Jennifer Lopez or Elizabeth Taylor. It's like, why can't you just give it a year? You know, I mean, again, if you hadn't married Rick Solomon so quickly, I think you would have realized that he was a drug addict, and you wouldn't have had to do all this. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well,
yeah, her son Dylan says this. He says she loves getting married. She loves falling in love. She loves getting married and falling in love.
Yeah, she does. She likes that infatuation period. And you know what? If that domestic violence incident had not happened with Tommy, I'm sure they would have gotten to that place eventually too.
Yeah.
You know, where it just became unbearable with the alcohol and the chaos in the house and all that. That just accelerated it.
Yeah. But then she says, well, I wanted to give my kids a traditional family, consistency, loving family. But again, if you wanted to give your kids like a consistent, loving family, you just said that Kid Rock was very good to your boys. I think Kid Rock wanted, you know.
And he had a child, at least one child, you know, from a previous relationship too. I mean, he was a father. He was, you know, you can say what you want about him. I think I
don't agree with his politics.
No, but I think he's a good father.
And she said he was very good to the kids, and that and it's a little bit like, so you could have had a very stable living in Detroit, you know, like you could have had a very stable, loving household and still be with a rock star and still have a glamorous life and security and all of that. But it's this weird, she wants something that doesn't exist. She wants her kids to be have this loving, stable home, but she wants every day to be fireworks.
Well, yeah, she wants rock star excitement all the time, but without the rock star baggage.
Yeah, and
that comes with it.
And my guess would be, I don't know about Kid Rock, but I would guess might be that it sounds like Kid Rock's kind of boring when he's not, right? I think he's kind of a regular guy. I think he's probably like, let's have dinner, let's watch a movie on the couch. He's
not a Tommy Lee. Yeah, he's not at all. He's totally different. Yeah, and then there was another marriage. I forget the person's
John Peters.
name.
I looked this up but
she does not talk about him at all.
I was like, he never married John Peters.
He?
So John Peters was a hairdresser. If I'm getting this right, hopefully I am. He was sort of the character that Warren Beatty was.
In Hairspray?
Shampoo
from
the
Hairspray.
70s.
No, that's a totally different thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he was married to Carrie Fisher or Barbara Streisand.
So he's a lot older than
He's
her.
a lot older, and they got married too. And again, that was annulled because it lasted literally 2 weeks.
Oh, and isn't this the guy who it was revealed he's left her like $10 million
Yeah, I heard about
will?
that. Is that him?
It has to be.
But I don't think he's died yet.
No, he hasn't died. But I mean,
he's going to leave her money because he loves her.
He's a rich old guy. Yeah. Well, yeah. And then in 2019, she had this thing where she wanted to move to the south of France. And so she did. And
but her kids have graduated. So she now isn't a full-time mom all the time.
Kids are graduated, and she hooks up with this soccer player, I don't know his name, who ended up crushing her hand in some type of violent incident. So, and then she married Dan the contractor.
Yes. Well, she says, I've always been attracted to these really hetero-masculine men, and they all had this idea that she was a damsel in distress, but she wasn't a damsel in distress. And she would tell them, like, I don't need you. I want to be here because I love you, but I don't need you. And the minute they heard that, they would get angry and become violent.
Yeah. She said
this cycle over and over.
She said that would make them even more insecure, and it touches a weird part in them.
Yeah. But I also think that there's this, I wonder if a lot of these men, right, there's this real disconnect between her image and who she really is. Right. Because I do think that the Pamela that we see, especially in this documentary and other places, you could tell. I mean, you could just tell from the way she was, even with all the makeup and all that. Like, she's just a sweet, nice girl who's an independent person who who likes adventure and likes fun and likes to do all this stuff. And I think that I think a lot of these men, especially these rock stars, I think like the image of her with the dressed up and the whatever. And I think that, when she's not that person day to day, because again, the other thing that's so weird is if she really wanted passion and love and insanity all the time with Tommy, the thing that the fight they got into was about her telling him to grow up.
Yeah.
I want you to be here and be a parent with me with these children. Again, that's not passionate love.
Right. I know what she's looking for just simply doesn't exist.
Yeah. No, it doesn't exist. So then she tells us about her parents getting remarried. And then we learn about, this is actually very true, which is she admits she really loved Tommy. And then she had to stop filming. She left the room. Like there was a point at which she left the room and she just couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't do it. And then we see this card, January 2022, filed for divorce from Dan after 1 year of marriage. So I mean,
well, and then the final part of this is she leaves this voicemail to the producers, and she says that again, she's saying she's never gotten over not being able to make it work with the father of her kids, so she's just never been able to be with anybody else, and she'd rather be alone than not be with the father of her kids. Granted, her kids are grown men now. And she said, but she also can't be with Tommy either because it's like a punishment.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, like you're torturing yourself. You're 55 years old or something. Your kids are grown. And you're torturing yourself with the thought of this man who, again, if he had not been arrested for kicking her or whatever,
something else.
So they would have been divorced within a year. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
It was not sustainable. He was a raging alcoholic.
Well, honestly, I think, and this little plug for therapy, I think, and I don't know if she's been in therapy since, but because she has all of this unresolved sexual trauma from her childhood, she grew and then became not intended, but became a huge sex symbol who was objectified on this really big level. I think that she's really wrestled with her sexuality, how she sees herself. And I almost think that it's back to that whole thing about the babysitter that molested her and then feeling like I did this with my mind, that this feeling of such shame and what I should want versus what I do want. And I think it's just so garbled in her mind somewhere. I just feel like so much of this is that she feels punished. She
like this is just her fate.
Yeah, this is her fate to be objectified, to things, sexual things,
to be alone, to not have this love that she wants.
Well, but also to be raped, to be seen that way, like all of those things, because she obviously keeps looking for it, but again, as she's mentioned many times, I'm not a good planner. Ha 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 ha. There is something to be said for like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, Pam. Like, heal yourself. Like, I don't know. I feel like she thinks she's healed herself, but I don't feel like she's really healed. I don't think that she feels I don't feel like she really, I think she likes herself and loves herself and respects herself. But I think at the same time, she feels a lot of deep shame.
Yeah. And I don't know if I would say she thinks she's healed. I think she recognizes that she's not, because she certainly doesn't, say that or act like it. I think she knows. And I don't know how much work she's done. But yeah, it just seems to me a real shame that this is where she's at still mentally. And then, she did at the end, we see, she was cast to play Roxy in Chicago on Broadway. And she seemed to really get into that. And she did a great job. She got great reviews and that seemed very empowering. So she needs to do more stuff like that. And I hope that this documentary will empower her and get more projects and more jobs because, she really just seems like just a nice person.
Yeah. No, she's always been a nice person. Well, at the same time where she's doing the Roxy, the Hulu doc comes out.
Right.
We're in real time. And I guess the son watched it. She refuses to watch it. And it's interesting because the one thing they do talk about is that they made it so that apparently in the Hulu doc, it was described that because Tommy was such an asshole and wouldn't pay those contractors, that was the justification for stealing it, which again wasn't true. But we had to have the dramaturg, the drama of the thing was we have to make. I guess what is it? It was why can't I think of his name? That played Seth Rogen. I think they had to make Seth Rogen a reason or some sort of reason behind him.
Well, because they made this without any consultation from Pam or Tommy, so they had to make it up.
Yes. So she was pissed too because she was like, hello, you're doing this now? More and more and more. But yeah, I actually have to say I like this little ending part with her and the opening night and what she brings to the role of Roxy. And, it's ended by her saying, she's grateful for the experiences. She doesn't blame anyone. She's looking past her life. And it's been a life. I mean, she has lived. Yeah. She has really,
she has lived but she still has a lot more to give.
She does.
I really hope that this documentary helps her. But, I had to, and she says in the end, so Brandon says she's finally doing what she wants to do and she's not worried about what her boyfriend thinks or making her husband jealous. And she says, I'm not a victim. So that's good. But I had to look this up because I remember that this happened a couple of years ago because the whole time I keep thinking, God, what are Brandon and Dylan's relationship with Tommy like?
Yeah. And some weird stuff happened a couple of years ago,
so a couple of years ago, there was a fight between Brandon and Tommy. Brandon punched him out and Tommy ended up going to the hospital. And Brandon said it was related to Tommy's alcoholism. I guess Brandon had tried to stage an intervention that didn't work out. And there was a lot of feuding between the two of them on social media. And I remember I think this happened a couple times where they got into a physical altercation. And because I remember they filmed it, like Brandon filmed. Tommy was so drunk that he punched him out and he was basically passed out on the floor, couldn't even get up and he was totally wasted. But I mean, so shortly after that, Tommy went to rehab and he said that he was drinking 2 gallons of vodka a day.
Oh my gosh.
Which I don't even know how that's possible and not have alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, how Tommy Lee is still alive is beyond me.
All those guys.
Yeah. Anybody in Motley Crue.
Anyone in Motley Crue. It's kind of like, it's like Keith Richards is still alive and Tommy Lee is still alive. But he did he's been sober a couple of years and he's now married to this Brittany Furlan.
Yeah. I follow her on social media. She's one of these people who she's very, very pretty. But she was on Heather McDonald's show, Juicy Scoop.
I listened
and she's like one of these people who thinks she's really, really funny. And she's kind of not.
No.
I don't think she's very funny. But I think that a lot of people tell her she's funny because she's pretty.
Well, and when Vine used to be a thing, she was like the queen of Vine. She had the most followers. And Vine was just these little short, like 30-second videos. Very, very short.
And she likes to do these little weird videos and things. And sometimes you see Tommy in them or not, but they're never funny. They're never clever. They're not, you know how you see stuff on social media that it's like, oh, this is clever. Like this is smart. They are kind of just basic things, just silly videos of like, look at I'm being silly or I'm doing that, it's not funny, not clever.
Well, yeah, she's 36 and he's 60. So that's a really big age gap.
Well, and she got in a little bit of trouble because she made a comment or she said something about, because now this documentary's come out, and she's revealed like Tommy's the love of her life. And I feel for Brittany in this because it's like, hello, he's married, and he's not, we're in this new relationship and it's very hurtful to her. But I think she made some kind of catty comment and then people came for her.
And then she took it down. Yeah. I think I looked at the post that everyone was talking about and I can't even remember. It was so unremarkable.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think it was that bad. I think she was just kind of poking fun at, kind of like trying to say, it's fine. Don't worry about me. It's fine. But everyone jumped on her for that. And it's just like, oh God, who cares? And also too, who cares? Like, it's not, Pam is the one saying Tommy was the love of her life. And it's not the other way around. So why does Brittany care? And also, I don't really think that she wants to get back together with Tommy. She even said it in that voicemail. She said, but I can't imagine being with him either because it would be like a punishment.
Yeah.
So, really, this is just something that like, she's got to just get out of this space.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about Tommy anymore. I want her to just move on and like.
No, if you're not working on yourself, Pam, I highly recommend it. No, but I do. I want her to heal and to push past these things. I want her to resolve for herself what love is, because love is, love can be many things, but love is also showing up for someone, like continuing to show up day in, day out. Like I said, I've been married a long time. I've been through all of this stuff and you have highs and lows. And then I had an illness a couple years ago and like my husband showed up for me. Like that is love. That is like, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you're okay. That's love.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be all encompassing and insane and crazy all the time. You can have love and, security and all of that. You just can't have both. You cannot have both. Doesn't work like that.
Yeah. They're not compatible.
All right. Well, you started this one. You wrap it up.
Okay. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe.
Yes, please. And tell a friend.
And
please and thank you.
Spread the word. We would appreciate it. If you like this episode, please give us a 5-star rating and review. That would really help us out. And we will see you soon.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.